Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Bosch, Season 7, Episode 4. A crazy episode. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I threw it out there last episode. I didn't expect it to be an immediate thing. I also didn't expect it to kind of happen in between episodes, but I should have expected it. We open with both Vincent and his mistress dead. I was like, oh, snap. I was like, and I literally threw that out there last episode because you had to like tell your mistress where to go. Like whoever it is must know enough about you to know that you have a mistress, and they must have been gathering up as much intel on Vincent as they can, like trying to take him out whenever they had the opportunity. I don't know, like, cause how would you know to go to follow his? Maybe I'm wrong. I assumed that they followed his mistress there, because it's like, how else would you know exactly where he was unless you follow his mistress? So, not unless they were following Maddie, but I think like if you look at that scene in the previous episode, like they were already waiting outside. They focus on them after Maddie leaves, but I'm pretty sure that car was already there to begin with. I could be wrong, but it's like, poor mistress got it, and so did Vincent. And it's like, all right, took all that stuff, and then immediately goes for Chandler. And I was like, what? I was like, we popping Chandler in the final scene? What are you doing? It's the final scene. You don't have to go out of the way you kill Chandler. Like, no, don't do that. I was like, I know she could be, yeah, you know, obviously, like, you're not always the biggest fan of her with the particular cases she takes, but I'm like, yo, come on. That's crazy. Luckily, it turns out she's actually alive. Because I was wondering, like, the moment Maddie got there, I was like, oh boy. Because, like, Bosch had figured it out. He's like, do not go in there. Wait for the cops. Wait for us to get there. But, luckily, she got there and checked on Chandler in time. Like, obviously, they probably would have been able to just, you know, moment they got there, they could have called an ambulance and stuff like that. But still, I'm actually surprised she survived. It turns out she got super lucky because the second bullet was off, but the first bullet actually ricocheted off of her, the coffee thing, and ended up missing her heart. So she got lucky in many different regards. But it's like, because obviously they're all going into this, like they find the double body, they find Vincent and his mistress, and obviously they don't know what's what until Vega pulls out his card. So, oh my god, it's it's Vincent and everything. It's like, oh man, that dude, yeah. And it's like, yep, that definitely doesn't look like his wife. Initially, it's kind of like, well, do you think the wife could be responsible because it does look like a pro hit? But now you add in what happened to Chandler. I mean, hell, like Maddie, like, I mean, that's always got to be a little bit disturbing too, because another person in your life that you care about got shot. You know, it's like, obviously Jerry got shot in the past. Her mom was shot to death. Now, like, Honey is literally on the like, and they have her in an induced coma. She's stable, but still critical, so. And as Bosch says it, it's like, right, well, because, like, Maddie points out, like, yeah, she actually doesn't even like her nickname. She actually straight up hates it, but it's like, yeah, but she's all about money. But it's like, no, it's more than money. It's like, she plays every angle of the system, and it's like, no, she was like, she uses every angle. So it was like, no, she plays every angle like a billard. And it's like, yeah, for him, he's kind of grilling on the whole, like, well, Chandler being bad and everything. But then he immediately goes like, but, you know, got to give the devil due. She is a tough cookie. So here's to money, which she had to, Maddie had to correct him to Honey. And he's like, to Honey, you know, and it's like, that's kind of a crazy circumstance. Obviously, we got your boy Jimmy. I was like, yo, Jimmy! He didn't pop up at all last season. I was like, yo, Jimmy's back. Obviously, this is their case. But obviously, it's connected to the double bodies Bosch already caught. Which even Irving's like, you got this, you got the arson case, and now, because technically you've got 3 cases, because it's like Chandler and Vincent and his mistress, like, that's all one case, but it technically is 3 different cases, 2 separate cases plus the arson case. It's like, can you handle all that? But Bosch is like, yeah, don't worry, I got it all. But I'm like, that is a lot to be balancing at once. Some big profile cases in that, because I think it's already like the arson case is already big enough, just because I think publicly it's just a bigger thing, but I also think like the mayor makes it an even bigger thing too, so it's kind of catching a lot more spotlight in certain regards. But yeah. But ultimately, they end up interviewing Maddie, and they kind of find out, like, right, what Vincent was offering, that he was going to, like, expose some insider trading. And it's like, right, the video was recorded, and Maddie points out the fact that she was there the entire time. The moment she said that, Bosch was like, no. Because that's what I was worried about. Like, my initial assumption was, like, who's ever after Vincent last episode who was waiting for him, I thought that was someone related to the people he scammed. That's what I thought that was about. I mean, maybe it still could be, but the fact is they went after the laptop specifically. Makes it seem like this might be related to the insider that he was about to spill the beans on. But it could simply be a situation that they were gathering all the evidence that proves he is guilty of sin of what he did. So it's not just about killing him, it's about getting all the information. But it's also, but that's like, if it was about the Ponzi scheme and the pyramid scheme and everything like that, I feel like they wouldn't need to go through that trouble if he's dead, but maybe it's like about helping his other victims. But I think it's more so like, I do believe it is about that. But that's also the thing, like, how did they find out that, how did Chandler, well, how did they know that Vincent was talking about all this? Like, his wife must know. Maybe that's something ahead of time. Part of me is like, the only other person that knows about this is the SEC guy. So I'm like, not unless he's involved, not unless he's dirty and he set this in motion. Like, oh, I'm taking this case. But secretly, like, oh, I know about this. Like, oh, we got to kill Vincent. He knows too much. Because, like, that's the only person we've seen Chandler talk to that's in the know about that. So, but the thing is, Maddie's now potentially in trouble because she heard everything. Yeah, like, she was there recording the camera, so she heard everything Vincent said. A copy got given to Vincent to listen to make sure everything is accurate. And obviously Chandler had a copy. But Maddie has all that information too. So he's talking to Jimmy being like, no one can know that Maddie was there. So that kind of makes sure she's safe for now. Because at first, because I threw it out there last episode, I was like, oh man, like, the sad thing is Vincent could get so many people dragged into this. Like, I figured, like, because Chandler was defending him, that anyone that was trying to get, like I said, I initially thought this was about the scheme, the Ponzi, the pyramid scheme and everything. So I thought, like, oh, like, they're trying to kill Chandler because it's like, oh, you're defending such a horrible person. And so they were going to go after anyone that was helping him, and technically Maddie's a part of that team. You know what's also interesting too, and I think this has to be considered, I called this dude Alan in the first episode. His name is Miller. Notice that's another thing that has to be considered too. He's been missing. Like, remember, like, Chandler kept being like, oh yeah, he's calling in sick, and I think that's so interesting. Like, he just happens to be missing around these. I mean, granted, he was missing a little while beforehand, but I'm like, it's just interesting, like, while this is going down, he isn't around. So I'm like, I'm kind of suspicious of everyone. I ain't gonna lie to you. There's a part of me that's suspicious of Antonio. Like, Antonio's just trying to be a good boyfriend and try to get her to open up about it. It's like, oh, are you still processing? And she's like, Maddie's like, of course I'm still processing. It literally happened today. And now she feels like she's being grilled by him because he's like, oh, maybe it'll help to kind of talk about it. Really talk about it. It's like, let people kind of deal with things in their own way. It's kind of like messed up for him to kind of, especially because it's still such a fresh wound. But like, part of me was almost like, you want her to talk about it a lot. I mean, like, we didn't see we get a tiny look at the person. They have like that mask on where like you can see their face, but you can't make out all their features. So I'm like, that look, I was like, now in retrospect, it looked like they had facial hair. So I was like, could that been Antonio? That's why I was like, I don't know, man. I'm throwing it out there now. I got suspicious of Antonio this episode. I was like, that person looked like that could have been Antonio. That'd be super messed up if it's like he's the one responsible for this and he's just, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'm sure, like, once again, it could be coming from a perspective of, like, right, he works the job he works, and it's like, right, keeping all that inside is not good, so he opens up about a lot of his stuff, so maybe the same thing can be applied in, he just wants Maddie to do the same, but, like, I got a weird inkling from it, like, this episode. I was like, that felt like that was Antonio. Like I said, I could be 100% off base. I've kind of always been suspicious of, like, the boyfriend in certain other shows, and I was, like, going in for episode after episode. I know this person's suspicious, this is, and it turns out they're a decent person at the end. So I was like, oh, I was kind of suspicious of them kind of for no reason. So we'll see where things currently stand, whether or not there'll be more with that, like, whether my suspicions end up being true or they just completely end up being unfounded. But like I said, I'm just, oh no. Obviously, you have Alvarez kind of stressing because he heard about Gladys's murder in prison, and now it's kind of got him nervous. But he ended up talking to his lawyer about, like, yo, I want to get kind of like transferred to somewhere else, kind of so I could be safe. But Bosch and I keep doing that. Sorry, Bosch and Jerry hear about that, and they're like, all right, let's just jump on that immediately, and they end up questioning him later on, and it's like, right, you think you're safe. It's like, Gladys wasn't talking. It's like, well, yes, of course she was. That's why she got. The sad thing is, they were already planning on getting her beforehand. She never actually talked. I mean, she got arrested, but that was about it. But that's just enough of like, right, there's a possibility you talked. She was about to actually talk, but sadly, you know, I forgot what Vega explained. Like, basically, it went to her work number, and she didn't have it immediately set, so they transferred to her cell. So, but it's like, right, Gladys had died that night anyway, so there's not much she could have actually done to kind of prevent the whole situation. But, regardless, when they're questioning Alvarez later on, it's like, right, like, the fact that you're sitting here speaking with us means, like, oh, they're going to think you talked. Whether or not you talked or not, it's kind of beside the point. You're kind of marked as dead. And it's like, we know it was Pena. Just kind of confirm it for us. Because the fact is, just think about it. You think you're so safe and stuff in here, but it's like, think about it. He's sitting there thinking about you right now and trying to decide what to do. And I don't know whether that was Alvarez thinking about it because he's seen Mickey be like that plenty of times before, that he was kind of like, he could envision it. So it's like, okay, you guys get me safe, I'll spill the beans about everything. So we'll see how things kind of turn out there. Obviously, there's the whole first time we've seen Joan since the first episode. So her and Edgar, and he's like, oh, she's like, are you avoiding me or something? He's like, nah, just, you know, the boys and the you know, my work. And she's like, you had boys and your job well before we started dating. For her, it's like, I know that's BS. Whatever it is with you, it's something more. And so later on, he's like, oh, you want to go for drinks? But she's like, no, sorry. So things aren't working on that front. Like, so it seems like he's been giving her the cold shoulder the entire time. Once again, just everything going wrong in his personal life. Even at one point in time, he ends up waking up. I think he was drinking a lot. I thought that we could see, like, bras and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, like, was he with somebody? Because it looked like he was drinking. Like, he's not handling things well. He thinks he is. I think that was supposed to be, quote unquote, his last visit with his therapist. But it's like, nah, he should go back. He really should, because once again, it's a thing of, like, nobody wants to talk. Because I think Maddie takes after Bosch a lot in that regard of, like, she's, like, you know, getting a little upset at Antonio for asking questions, like grilling her to a certain extent. You know, Jerry's asking her if she's okay. She's like, I'm fine. Like, literally all three of them. Maybe it's Bosch rubbing off on them a little too much. It's like, she's kind of saying nothing's wrong and she's fine. Jerry's literally doing the same thing. And maybe that's what Jerry kind of sees for a second. Like, right, she's literally doing the same thing. I'm saying or maybe it's like, oh, maybe it's the irony is like, he's so concerned about Maddie. He's like, she's obviously not okay. When it's like, the irony is you're able to see that she's not okay when in actuality you're not okay. You know, so I think that could definitely be a possibility with that. So there's that. Obviously with Chief Irving, obviously he's got his guy Brown eavesdropping on Mayor Lopez's situation. Now we end up learning it's like, right, she finds out that there's a FBI thing that's not going to a grand jury or something. She was excited about it, and it's like, what the hell is that about? Part of me is like, she must be connected to something shady. Maybe that's why she's really pushing for this, like, keep booting Chief Irving, because it's like, whatever this is, he might come at her from her perspective. Like, she needs people that are, like, loyal to her, because she knows, like, if Chief Irving finds out about something that she's kind of been up to scandalously, like, or connected to, like, I don't know whether this is something, like, family related, or, you know, because whatever it is, it has to be personal enough for her to kind of, it seems like it's something like she's kind of like, oh, good, it's not going to a grand jury, or, you know, nothing like that's happening. So I'm assuming whatever it is, it will reflect badly upon her. So I would assume it's about connections or family. I wonder, does it have anything at all to relate to this arson case? I'm also curious, like, are any of, like, the arson case and this whole Vincent case, will there be any overlap in any of that? Maybe, maybe not. But then we also have later on, Lopez hires someone to take Francis's spot on, like, the commission, and it's like, obviously Irving, it's like, the guy doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he doesn't know, and the fact is he's aiming for my job, but now he's kind of feeling like a little bit of a lame duck, because it's like, I got to figure out what I'm going to do with my future, because I probably won't even have a second term with the way Lopez is kind of running things and trying to, like, push me out, so he's got to figure out things. Obviously, him and June go and visit their son, but it's like, right, he's got a thing that's pretty normal for most babies. And it's like, right, we're going to, like, expose him to, like, light to kind of battle whatever it is. And it's like, he's going to be here a couple more days. So, once again, you're kind of scared and nervous. You're like, I hope everything works out. Because, sadly, Irving already lost one son. I don't want him to lose another one under some circumstances like that. That'd be too heartbreaking, especially this being the final season. So I hope, like, everything works out. He, proves to be the fighter, that his parents are and, comes out okay. Like, I hope, so... And then another angle to this episode is the whole Billets situation. Things have escalated to the point there are, I wouldn't call them memes, just photoshops of her, and they're kind of spread around, even to the point Manx is like, I'm no Bill Gates, and I was able to find it within 3 keystrokes. So it's like all over the internet, because it's bad enough, like, that they're doing that, because she's a lieutenant. Like, this means no one's going to take her seriously. I mean, this is harassment to the degree. And obviously, she's telling Manx, is like, okay, I want to find whoever they are, and I want to hang them up by their scrotums with fish hooks. And Manx is like, ouch. Yes, ma'am. It's like, she is not messing around. Like, it started off with, like, some, like, terrible homophobic stuff. That was one thing, but, like, I guess her pushing, like, for an IA thing made this get, pushed even further. Which, Vega tries to make her feel better. Well, at least tells her, like, I understand. Like, a similar thing, basically, some people put used condoms on, like, her windshield or something like that. It's like, because she wouldn't date them. So it's like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's like, she has some, obviously, Billets is like, oh, I have some idea who it is. Because she had actually got someone to confirm what she learned from those 2 officers last episode about the guys who didn't show up. And she brings that up to Manx about, like, right, they weren't where they were in the area, but they didn't never show up, even though they were called for backup. So, which now it turns into a situation where, what was the other Thorn? He's kind of criticizing Billets because it's like, right, you didn't give me an opportunity, like, you're just accusing my guys and everything, and you didn't come to me and stuff like that. But the Billets is like, also, like, Manx already had him file, like, another 128 for everything that's going on, and it's like, obviously she doesn't have any evidence to prove that but she has enough of an idea who it is, and she's trying to gather the evidence. But, her captain is like, yeah, Thorn, Billets, you gotta, play nice for now until IA is able to kind of do its investigation, and they just kind of look at each other. Because, like, Thorn tried to make a remark of, like, right, you're not very well liked, Billets and Grace, and she's like, well, the same thing for you, Dawn. So, a little back and forth animosity, which is, I think, is ironic, considering the captain is in the middle of that, but, like, that was kind of him and Grace literally last season. So, but I get, this is kind of on a different level to it, well, kind of similar thing, but yeah, I can understand why Grace is so frustrated by all of this. So, a lot of interesting things. I'm really curious to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. The next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.